Today's podcast episode is sponsored by Let's Go. Let's Go is a 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to generating opportunities for youth and young adults through STEM education and workforce development.
Welcome to the Let's Grow Together podcast. My name is Ray McKetty, joined as always by my co-host,
Anna Ross.
And today we are talking with Jay Cavalcanto. He is the Chief Information Officer over at Constellation Energy. We're going to be going into a lot of different topics surrounding technology, leadership, a little bit of personal branding, and we're really excited to just kind of get into this discussion with you today, Jay. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course.
All right. Kind of start us off. Can you maybe give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and tell us a little bit about your journey to this point? How did you end up where you are?
Yeah, no problem. Well, again, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Love everything that you all do in the organization, and happy to be on talking to some of your folks. So look, I have a pretty, I'll say, interesting story in the sense that I was always into technology. So I was always a dork. As I like to say, computers just got cooler. That's all that changed. I was the same person I was when we were in high school playing with computers. It's just not as many people did it. So for me personally, it was somewhat of a journey of saying, hey, I know what I really like, and what I really like to do is technology. And I always have been fascinated with how technology can make people's lives better, how technology can solve business problems. And I've been lucky enough to stay within technology my entire career. I actually started as an intern with this company and have grown kind of through series of mergers and acquisitions and divestitures and things like that. So very blessed to not only get to stay with a single company through all its changes, but really get to stay in what I like to say is my hobby. Like I play with technology at home. I do all kinds of stuff, whether it be smart home stuff or things like that. And then I get to come to work and do the same thing. So that's a little bit about how I really kind of found technology and found this ability to mix personal, something that I really enjoy to do personally, along with something that I get to do corporately. So it's phenomenal.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
And it's exciting to hear how technology has changed and grown over the years.
Oh my gosh, it definitely has, right? I mean, you look at the way things have changed, and like I said, it's now everywhere, right? It's not just for certain people.
That's true. And I think that actually leads really well into our next question, which is, how would you explain what it is that you do to someone who isn't familiar? What does a CIO do, right? They might be asking, so what area is it that you specialize in? How would you explain it to someone who is, may not be familiar?
Yeah, I'll answer the question two ways, right? There's what I'm responsible for, and then there's kind of what I do. Because they're not always directly related. So I have responsibility for all the technology and the cybersecurity in the company. So every bit of technology that we use, how we secure it, how we run it reliably to support our business falls under my team's job to manage, to run, to upgrade, etc. That's in a nutshell what we do. Everything from the desktop computer that you have to the laptop, to the servers that sit in our data centers, to all the cloud work we do. We manage all of it, we secure all of it, and we make sure that it's there to support the business. What I really do, right? They took my admin access away a long time ago, so they don't let me put my hands on keyboards anymore. But what I really do, I like to think of it is I grow and manage teams, right? This all comes down to the people that work for you, the teams that do the work. And what I like to think that I do first and foremost is really support them in being able to be the best that they can be, to really produce high performing teams? How do you create a culture? How do you create an environment where people can do their best work, feel valued, feel that they're contributing to the company, and feel that they're part of something, right? That to me is my ultimate goal. I am first and foremost a leader of teams, and I have a huge. I've learned over time, as much as I love technology, I really love building and shaping teams, and I think it came from, whether it be playing on sports teams when I was younger, being part of teams. Even now, I think there's nothing more fulfilling or more satisfying when you're on a really high performing team. When you're on a team that is just kicking butt day in, day out, that is a really, really satisfying thing to be a part of. And that's what I want to kind of create every day for the folks that work for me within IT.
That's awesome.
That is, yeah, wow. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
We talk a lot with our students about like the different kinds of leadership and what type of leader they want to be. And it sounds like you found your leadership direction. You sound like you really know how you want to manage teams, and feeling like bringing out the best in people is kind of your goal, which is really cool to hear. And I know that's not always the case, but it definitely is with the best leaders.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. You got to make a lot of mistakes to get there, right? I mean, I look at when I first began managing teams, and I look back and I'm like, ooh, I kind of messed that up, or I kind of messed that up. Or you start to, I think, refine what is kind of core to you, because, you mentioned personal branding. Branding's so important when you talk about leadership, because you can't have brand, authenticity, and leadership be divergent things, right? There has to be this connection between your personal brand, your vision, your view of things, and how you lead. Because if there is kind of an authenticity break between those things, you don't get a genuine leader, and you don't get, I believe, someone that people want to work with or want to follow. And I think for a long time, I know I never really thought about personal brand, but it's really important. And I think the connection between personal brand and leadership, and like anything else, I think it's a practice muscle, right? None of this stuff just happens. It's all a practice muscle, and I think you get to take things from various leadership roles that you have throughout your life to help kind of create that person that you are.
I love that perspective of like taking the best of the people that you've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
I know I threw in an extra question there, so if you want to take the next one.
No, absolutely. I'm over here thinking, again, the flow is going really well, because that actually leads into our next question for you, Jay, which is, what are some of the challenges you may face when managing? Well, originally the question was technology, but I'm also going to expand that to managing teams and technology at a company-wide level.
Yeah, we could be here a while to talk about that. Let me answer it on both aspects of it, both from a technology aspect and a people aspect. I think the biggest challenges you have at a corporate level is trying to manage kind of operational reliability and security with something that is so prevalent in people's lives. And, I often joke, right? Nobody walks in the office on Monday morning and sits there and says to our CFO, hey, I've been really thinking about the way we, do our cash projections, and really think maybe we should look at blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people walk into the office on Monday morning and inform me about a different piece of technology we should use because they're using it at their house, or they read some article or things like that, because technology is so prevalent and it's so personal to people, right? I want to use this thing that I like so much, or I believe this thing will make me more efficient. and that's maybe all really true, but we have both operational reliability and stability, but also security. We run nuclear power plants, right? We are the largest nuclear operator in the United States. There's an awesome responsibility in ensuring the protection of our assets, of what we do. And that does sometimes limit what we can use from a technology standpoint to ensure that it's secure. So it's a constant balance, right? It's a constant balance to make sure that you enable people as fully as possible, but also understand the awesome responsibility we have to protect the environment that we run. And AI is a great example of this, right? AI is amazing. It's everywhere. It's top of mind. It's on every device. It's on every application. But we have to be really careful about where we're using it and how we're using it, and things like that. So that's by far the toughest part of the job. The balance that you have to bring to the job is definitely really, really hard. On the people side, I think it's a matter of, how do you continually make people feel valued, feel part of something, especially in a more hybrid world, right? This is amazing because it allows us to connect and it allows us to do so much more. But you also lose a little bit of really human connection, right? So how do you take the value and the benefits of this virtual type environment that we all live in, right? We have employees that are in over 40 states. So how do you make them feel part of a group, feel part of a team, even though they won't be together maybe once a year? So how do you create that stickiness in your culture? How do you create a culture that makes people feel empowered, that makes them want to do their best work, all while kind of keeping the core culture that you want to drive as a leader, right? That you want to be a place people want to come and work. So how do you kind of have a culture, yet keep bringing new people in and grow that culture, right? You don't want to make everybody fit in the mold you have, right? You need to have a culture that welcomes new people and grows with it. All of which, while you're trying to do in a primarily virtual environment, that allows us to get the best and brightest minds from all over the United States, which is great. But it doesn't allow us to create that real tight community that you get when you're together all the time. So I'd say that's probably some of the biggest challenges and what I think of the most for the team.
That's awesome. And it sounds like it's like a balancing act of content knowledge, specialization, and people skills that allows you to kind of be in this position of responsibility and to carry out
very well said. Yeah.
Awesome.
That also leads us really well into our next question for you. You mentioned AI. You mentioned that people are always using technology, exploring new things, whether in their personal or professional lives. And so thinking about students, maybe the high school or college age students that we've got right now listening, what are those like key technologies that you think that everyone should be familiar with if they're looking to go into a professional STEM career?
There's a lot there. I'll say a couple things. One, I think it's really, really important to. I think it's definitely important to look at some of the great cloud technologies that are out there, right? You look at the things that you can do from Microsoft, Google, Amazon cloud technologies. I think that's really, really important. There's lots of certifications out there. There's lots of opportunities to work in that space. I don't want to say everybody has to be a developer. I think the ability to develop is great, but it's also not for everybody. If you have an interest in being a developer, then by all means, play with the different development languages, explore, try to create something, build your mobile app, build whatever it is, right? I do encourage you to get into coding, especially if it's something you're interested in. But I also know that not everyone wants to code. And that's where some of the new AI stuff is really exciting, right? You can build and and leverage some of these coding tools without being a quote unquote developer. So I think that's a really great thing for people that are interested in it. For people that just want to understand the way technology works, that's where I think some of the offerings that you have from the various providers, such as, like I said, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, all of which have kind of, I think, free classes that you can take and learn, and certifications and things like that, all of which they offer. And I'm sure you all have access to those things as well. But that's great because you start to understand how these technologies works, right? But most people don't understand how the cloud works. And understanding and learning those kind of things, I think, are so important, because if you want to get into technology, you have to understand how the pieces fit together. You can't solve a business problem unless you understand how all the pieces fit together. So the other thing I think that's really important is that, I am by trade an engineer, right? And I always think engineering is amazing because it helps you figure out how to solve a problem, right? You know how to take something apart and put it back together. Now, by design, I was an electrical engineer. Again, they took my soldering gun away a long time ago as well. But the skills that you learn on how something works, how problems are solved, I think that is the biggest missing skill that I see in technology. You have tons of people that can come and sit and code something, but to sit there and say, what is your problem? What is it that you're trying to do? And to kind of translate that into what it really means and then make it fit into a system, right? I don't think enough people understand the way all systems work together. And that's why I always think sometimes starting with some of those cloud type opportunities helps you understand the way things work together. So I think there are some really good technologies. And then the biggest thing I'd say is explore the technologies you're most interested in, right? If you like to code and develop, then go code and develop. If you like to do networking things, then dive into networking. Every one of those, if you like servers, if you like laptops, desktops, etc., operating systems, whatever those things are in technology that you like, go dive into it, because you can branch from there. Again, they're all connected. So find the thing you're most interested in and then branch out from there. And I think it's a great opportunity to branch out.
That's awesome. I love that emphasis on understanding the big picture and kind of finding your spot in it. I feel like a lot of times we hear people talk about, you just need to know AI or you just need to know this and you'll be set forever. And I love that you're kind of emphasizing know a little bit about everything, know how it's going to fit into the bigger picture.
Do not ever hang your hat on a single piece of technology, because they will come and go. Hang your hat on something that you're interested in, something that you're passionate about, and something that is evergreen, right? The way things connect and work together is just as important with AI as it was when companies were moving to the cloud, and will be on whatever the next thing is. I never believe you make your name or you stake your thing on one piece of technology. It doesn't mean you're not an expert in it. It doesn't mean you're not really good at it. Just don't make it your entire identity, right? And to sit there and say, oh, well, if I'm an expert in this, then I'll be set. It's not that simple.
Love that.
That's all well and good, and it also just kind of I'm gonna move to the question before, because I feel like the question after that got answered a little bit.
Yep.
So I want to ask you, Jay, do you have suggestions for students, or just people in general who might be navigating the digital divide? As you know, there's sometimes disparities in access to technology, access to certain things that others may have access to when it comes to technology, digital citizenship, digital literacy, etc. So for those students or for those individuals facing those disparities, what are some ways that you kind of feel like, okay, these are some things that everybody kind of has access to, or here's some suggestions to hop right in and
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a couple of things there. The digital divide is definitely a problem within the country that I think we're addressing, but probably not addressing fast enough, right? I think there's groups like yourselves and others that work really hard to get technology into the hands of people. I think our public library systems are working really, really hard to have access to technology. I don't think people realize that, right? You know, the most likely your local library has access to technology. Maybe it's not the newest technology, but they absolutely have technology that you can access and you can leverage and you can learn. The other thing I'll say is a lot of people, even do have smartphones. They do have access to phones because it's such a core part of how so many things are done in the world. And there's a lot that can be learned and gleaned and done just with a smartphone, which is a computer in your pocket, right? For lack of a better term, it's a really powerful device. It does enable you to learn. It does enable you to take kind of some of these classes. So what I would say is, look, you have to go out and try and get your hands on these things. And whether that be at your public library, or whether it be through great groups like yourselves, whether that be things that schools can offer, because I know more and more schools are trying to offer things. They have labs, they have these things. You have to try to get your hands on those technologies so you can play, right? I think kind of everything we just said, play is somewhat lost in the adult world of play, explore, be curious in how technologies work. And you can do that with any piece of technology that you have. So that's, I think the way I would say it, hey, look, I'm definitely not a politician. I definitely don't understand all the ins and outs when it comes to politics and what we need to do in order to better enable our schools and better enable high-speed internet access and things like that. But I do know there are plenty of places out there that are trying really hard to do that for young folks, and I really encourage them to go try to get your hands on as much of it as possible.
Awesome.
All
Yeah,
right. That
yeah,
kind of leads.
phenomenal.
Oops, sorry, Ray. Go for it.
No, I was just saying one of the things I really appreciate about your response is just that emphasis on play. So I'm a musician, artist, and that's like how you really find that next song or that next groove or whatever is you just play around,
Right.
and how so much of that, like you said, is lost when we start taking on more responsibilities and then start going into the quote unquote adult world. I just wanted to underline what you said there. That is huge for sure.
It's that ability, I think, to just let your mind wander and let things happen, right? And it doesn't, I mean, you said you're a musician, you're creatives. I mean, that happens in any kind of space, right? That can happen in a technology space. That can happen in a space where you just let your mind wander and say, well, what if I did this? Or what if I had that? Or what if this looked like this? Or what if this app existed, right? That ability to creatively play is unfortunately something that I talked about the smartphones. I think it's unfortunately something the smartphone has robbed us in, right? Because we look to that to provide our distraction or to provide our consumption of content, as opposed to that kind of just let your mind wander and experiment on its own. So they're both amazing and wonderful devices, and sometimes not so amazing and wonderful. As the father of two teenage girls, I can give you both sides of how wonderful or not wonderful they are.
Definitely would agree with you on all of that. So that kind of leads us to our last question. You have dropped a lot of little nuggets along the way of really great ideas, ways for young people to move forward. And so, just kind of as a wrap up for the young people that are inspired by your journey and who you are, your leadership style, what you've done, what would your suggestions be to those young people, whether that's in developing leadership qualities or being a CIO or, whatever kind of suggestions you want to give? What would you tell young people looking to get into similar fields?
So I think the way I'd answer that question is with a little bit of a story. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to tell you a story in order to answer your question. So I have something that has stuck with me for a long time and something that I take through kind of leadership and things that we've done. And it's something that when I was in college, I was a rower. So for those that are maybe around water type areas, especially on the East Coast or West Coast, you have the opportunity to be part of a rowing team. And rowing is somewhat of the ultimate team sport. If you watch in the Olympics most recently or things like that, 2, 4, 8 people working together, really important that they're in sync, etc. Well, we had a coach that the most important thing is to figure out how you make the fastest boat. And that doesn't necessarily mean you put all the fastest people on the boat. It had to be a group that worked together. And we had a coach, when he was trying to figure out how to make the fastest boat, would sometimes switch 2 people. So you'd race 2 boats and then you'd switch 2 people and you'd do it again. Well, every so often, if the coach felt that you weren't pulling your own weight, term that we all know now, but is very much a rowing term, if you weren't pulling your own weight, he would pluck you out of the boat and he'd put a Twinkie in your seat and he'd let the boat race again. And you'd have to sit and watch the boat race with a Twinkie in your seat. Because if you weren't pulling at least equal to your own weight, you were providing no value to the boat. And if you think about that, that's a really powerful thing to sit and watch a Twinkie be in your seat. But it's this larger lesson that never really left with me, that regardless of what you're doing, whether you're developing, whether you're leading, whether you're a key team member, it's so important to be pulling your own weight, to bring your value to the team and to show up for the work, the project, the goal, the task, the team, the leadership, whatever it is. Show up and ensure that you are contributing to that team in a way that it's apparently obvious that you are faster than a Twinkie. That's what I would say is the takeaway, regardless of the field, the interest, that it doesn't matter. Show up and show that you are bringing value to this team, and you're pulling your own weight. So that's what I would say is the most important thing, regardless of where you go in fields. So
I love that story.
I'm struggling between what we should title this: either pull your own weight or be faster than a Twinkie. We're gonna figure it out after the post. But,
one of those two.
That's
really
awesome.
that simple. If you just always beat the Twinkie, you're gonna be all right.
Beat the Twinkie,
Love
man. That's great. Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Jay, for your time and for your expertise and just sharing a little bit about your journey with us and how and the little nuggets that you provided, they're going to go a long way for sure. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure to sit down and chat with you and to use technology to connect with you in this way.
Yeah, and thanks to both of you, Hannah, Ray. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on and take some time. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, and catch us next time on Let's Grow Together.